was drinking, so his judgment was impaired. And as a mom, we always preached, you do not drink and drive. Do not drink and drive. Well, my son didn't. He'd asked several people for a ride home, and for whatever reason didn't get that ride home, ended up going home with this 18-year-old. Or ended up leaving with this 18-year-old. Did not make it home. They were going about 90 miles an hour down Rolling Meadows Road, didn't negotiate a turn, and hit a tree. The coroner said my son was probably dead within 6 minutes. The trauma to his body was so extensive, he probably bled to death. I was, as a mom, in shock from the moment that I found out. As a person in the community, very upset. Of course, over time, it took a couple of years to find out a lot of this information. But that there were over 40 kids that night in that bar, and that this one that they know had left 3 times and came back into the bar and was allowed to drink. Nobody questioned his age or these other kids' age. And to me, that is just outrageous. Chad, like I said, was 21, would have been 22 in June of the following year. He has a sister and a brother, about as close as sisters and brothers can be. He was a big-time wrestler. He loved to teach wrestling, taught some of the local youth as far as wrestling. I hope Chad will be remembered forever. I wish he was here with us. Makes it very hard when I run into these kids that tell me stories about Chad, how much they miss him and how much that he taught them. Holidays without him are horrible. Family gathers, there's always that spot where there's something missing. So like the empty chair syndrome. There's things that happen in our lives, the birth of a grandchild, or an accomplishment that somebody does that Chad would be very proud of, that Chad should be there to share with us. I have 5 grandchildren, and of those 5 grandchildren, he knew one. He was, his brother and sister both were expecting at the time that he died. He knew that he was going to have a nephew, and we weren't sure of the other one. He was very excited. Chad will never get to know them. They will never get to know Chad. We can only tell them about Chad. To me, that night was totally preventable. There's not any one person that's to blame. The blame, there's enough to go around, including the boys that were in the car, my son and the other boy who had died. You know, they made poor choices. I'm not saying that they're not to blame, but when we are adults, when you're a business owner, I feel you have a responsibility to the youth. You have a responsibility to your community. If you're going to serve alcohol, then you should abide by the laws. Because to me, to allow somebody to go out into the community, whether they're underage or not underage, knowing that they're fully intoxicated, they can't walk, or, you know, that their judgment is so impaired, to me is like sending somebody out into the community with a gun. You have a lethal bullet that could hit any one of us. You know, not just our youth, could be our parents, could be a sibling. So, as far as me, how underage alcohol has affected me, November 18th, that morning when the trooper showed up at my door and informed me that my son had been in a fatal motor vehicle accident, my life changed forever. Every aspect of my life changed. From the people that I knew before Chad died to my family, the relationships I have with my family, my children, my grandchildren, the community. You deal with a lot. Anxiety and anger and grief is just devastating. I have met a lot of nice people because of Chad's death, you know, and for that I'm thankful. But I wish Chad could have been here for a lot of these, you know, for me to know his family, to be there during those special holidays and those special times. And I hope that no other parent ever has to go through it, because even your worst enemy you don't want this to happen to. It's horrible. And if it can be prevented, if anybody can do anything, any little thing, all those little things add up. Thanks. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you very much, Ms. Yvonne. Folks, we're going to move on to the next portion of our agenda today, and that is our panel, our law enforcement panel. I'm going to ask the law enforcement panel to come to the front, please. We'll introduce you. Folks, today we have with us 4 representatives of our law enforcement community. We have Frank Wise, Chief Probation Officer. We have Lynn Bates, Magistrate District Judge. We have Chief Hoffield, Borough Police, and we have Trooper Lemansky with the PA State Police Department. Folks, please have a seat. Ms. Yvonne, with her book with photos and other information pertaining to her and her family's life. She's going to pass that around and share that with you all. We have 4 questions that we're going to ask the panel to elaborate on and provide their expertise and input. And we appreciate you fellows coming back again. We know you were here back in April at our town hall meeting. And we're going to go ahead and start with the first question. After we finish having the panel answer the questions, we're going to open the floor for you to have questions for the panel. So question number 1, what was your experience with underage drinking in Greene County? And we'll start on this end.
Well, my earliest experiences would be as an underage drinker. As a kid, I talked about this at the last panel. This was a problem that I saw in high school. I don't think there's anything unusual about that. I think that anybody here growing up anywhere has experienced underage drinking. When I was in high school, one of our fellow classmates was killed coming back from West Virginia. At that time, drinking was at the age of 18 there, and he and another gentleman were killed. He was killed, the other gentleman was not killed. Coming back, they went down there, gotten drunk, and drove back to Pennsylvania where the drinking age was 21. And I remember that a lot of, at the time in school, a lot of kids talked about how terrible this was, and that weekend drink somewhere. So, it's a problem. Sometimes I think that the kids, when we're that age, don't recognize the seriousness and the danger of. Professionally, certainly in probation, I work in juvenile as well as adult probation. By far, alcohol is the #1 drug problem that we have. By far, the many of the serious problems, violence, thefts, just boneheaded behavior, and I'm sure that the young people on the panel can certainly attest to this. You see it when it's drinking. One of the things that I talk about sometimes is domestic violence, and this can work with alcohol. With adults as well as juveniles. We'll get called out as probation officers in the middle of the night. Hey, so-and-so is beating his wife up, his girlfriend up, or whoever he's beating up. And, we always ask, are they drinking? And virtually every time the answer is yes. You see just many unsavory behaviors with that. Kids also self-medicate with alcohol.